Not all hauntings in Louisiana come from plantations or graveyards. Here's one from deep below the surface. In the early 1900s, workers digging a canal outside New Orleans hit something unexpected: an underground room, brick-lined, sealed, and completely dry. Inside were 6 wooden chairs arranged in a circle, and a pile of burned bones in the center. No door, no markings, no way in or out. Officials called it a burial chamber, but local papers didn't buy it. Some swore it was part of an old ritual site. Others said it was a trap, meant to keep something in. The city quietly filled it with concrete, but decades later, during maintenance, a worker swears he heard knocking from underneath the floor. That section of canal, still under repair, still closed to the public.
This story was sent to me by a woman named Sayuri, who took a swamp tour outside Lafayette. She says she still hears that engine starting in her dreams, even though no one was on board. I booked the airboat tour on a whim. Last-minute trip to Louisiana, trying to be spontaneous after a breakup. I picked one of the smaller swamp tour companies because I like the idea of fewer people, more nature, and no big crowds. There were 7 of us in total. A couple from Minnesota, 2 college girls, a dad and his son, and me. Our guide was a wiry man named Dennis, who looked like he was born on a dock. Friendly enough, spoke in short bursts, knew every inch of that bayou. The ride started slow. We cruised through dense cypress groves, Spanish moss hanging like curtains. The air was heavy but peaceful. About 30 minutes in, we stopped at a shallow bend so Dennis could talk about local gators. Everyone got up to take pictures. I wandered a bit down a narrow boardwalk that jutted into the reeds. There was a sign that said "Observation Deck." I thought I'd just snap a few solo photos. When I turned back, maybe 3 minutes later, the boat was gone. No voices, no engine, just gone. I yelled, nothing. The channel forked a few yards down so I couldn't see far. Maybe they drifted ahead, maybe it was a prank. I walked the edge of the swamp path trying to find higher ground or a better view. My phone had no service. Then I heard it, another boat. The hum was lower, almost like it was idling nearby. I followed the sound and found a smaller airboat tucked behind some overgrown cattails. It wasn't the one we came on. This one looked older, paint chipped, metal oxidized, but not abandoned. There were keys in the ignition, 3 life vests on the bench, and a 2-way radio still on. The engine clicked softly, like it had just been turned off. No bags, no people. I stepped back and started to call out when the engine roared to life. I hadn't touched anything. The propeller started spinning, slow at first, then faster. I backed away quickly, my feet slipping on the wet wood. The boat started moving, without a driver. It turned itself in the water, angled toward the opening in the trees, and glided out of view. I stood frozen. I didn't even realize I was crying until the sweat on my face started to feel cold. Then, my tour boat returned. Dennis pulled up like nothing happened. The group looked annoyed but relieved. "There you are," he said. "We turned around the second we noticed." "How long was I gone?" I asked. He frowned. 5 minutes, maybe less. I told him about the other boat, the keys, the engine starting. He looked toward the fork in the water and said, "Ain't supposed to be any docks back there." I insisted. I even tried to point it out on his waterproof map. He just shook his head and muttered something about the river remembering things. The rest of the tour went on like normal, but Dennis stayed quiet. When we got back to the dock, he pulled me aside. "That boat you saw?" he said. "You sure it wasn't chained?" "No," I said. "It was ready to go, still warm." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Used to be a guy who ran solo tours back in the 90s. Real small operation. Took people deeper than we're allowed now. What happened? Dennis looked around to make sure no one was listening. Disappeared mid-tour, whole boat. Family filed a report. Nothing ever found except a floating seat cushion. I asked if he was messing with me. He didn't answer, just walked back to his truck. That night I dreamt of the boat. Only this time, it didn't leave without me. This story was sent to me by a guy named Jalen, who thought he was just getting a cheap short-term rental in New Orleans. He says he's never been back and never will be. I was in New Orleans for a weekend bachelor party. My friends had all booked a big hotel room, but I was coming in a day later and needed a separate place for the first night. Found a cheap unit above a bar on Bourbon Street. Tiny, loud, but clean enough and central. The host sent me the access code with a quick note. Let me know if the fridge is stocked when you arrive. We've had issues. That struck me as odd, but whatever. I was tired. It was after midnight and the streets were still packed. I punched in the code, climbed a narrow set of stairs, and let myself into the unit. Right away, something felt off. It was neat, tidy, smelled like lemon cleaner, but it had this weirdly lived-in feeling, like someone had just stepped out for groceries. Then I checked the fridge. It was full. Not hotel minibar full, personal full, milk, orange juice, a 6-pack of Abita, even a to-go box with what looked like leftover red beans and rice. I texted the host, "Hey, there's food here. Looks like someone else's stuff?" He replied a minute later, "Weird, I restocked the place yesterday. Fridge should have been empty." I was too tired to argue. I put my bag down and crashed on the couch instead of the bed. The bedroom just didn't sit right with me. Too many shadows. Too much silence in a place that should have been noisy. At exactly 3:33 a.m., I woke up to flickering lights. Not just a dim bulb or a hallway light. Every single light in the place blinked in sync, like someone was flipping the main switch on and off. Then they stopped. Just back to normal. I checked the hallway, quiet. Figured it might be the bar downstairs messing with the breaker. But when I looked out the front window, I saw something that stopped me cold. The bartender was standing outside, not working, just standing there, looking up at the building, right at my window, and she was holding a bag of food, same white plastic bag with a red smiley face, same kind the leftovers in the fridge were in. Then she walked away. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I went downstairs to grab coffee and ask if the bar staff knew anything about the rental. I described the bartender. Older woman, long dark braids, silver ring on every finger. The guy behind the counter blinked like I'd spoken another language. "There's no one here like that," he said. "We're all dudes. Kitchen closes at midnight." I told him about the flickering lights. He shrugged. "That's the upstairs unit. We don't touch anything up there. Belonged to the owner's sister before she passed." I asked when that was. He said, "Year ago, this weekend actually." I didn't say anything. I just went back upstairs, packed my bag, and got out. But before I left, I opened the fridge again. The food was gone, completely empty. The only thing inside was a folded napkin with one word on it, written in blue pen. "Welcome." This story was sent to me by someone named Ramon. He works city sanitation in New Orleans and says this one messed with his head more than any Mardi Gras cleanup ever has. I've worked cleanup for the city for over a decade. Parades, block parties, festivals, you name it, I've swept it. So, when I say I've seen weird stuff, I mean it. But this wasn't weird, it was wrong. It started the morning after Mardi Gras. I was assigned to a quiet uptown stretch, not the big canal crowds, more residential, old oak trees, balconies, and the kind of streets you only walk if you live there. My job was to clear confetti, beads, trash, routine stuff. but as I turned the corner onto Rousseau Street, I stopped. It looked like a parade had rolled through. I mean, fresh confetti, crushed plastic cups, colored flyers blowing in the wind, and even an overturned folding chair still rocking a little like someone had just gotten up. Weird thing was, there hadn't been any scheduled events in this area. I know the calendar by heart. Rousseau was a no-parade zone this year due to construction. I radioed it in. Dispatch was confused too. They checked the permits. Negative. No registered routes in your zone yesterday. But I was standing in it. Beads in the trees, tracks in the street, fresh footprints, and a smell like fireworks and cologne. Then I found one of the flyers. It was plain white, printed in black ink. Said, "Midnight Procession, Rousseau to Valence, mask required." I checked the date. Tomorrow's date. I flipped it over, blank. No group name, no permit number, no sponsor. Just that same message, like an invitation only certain people were supposed to find. And then I noticed something else. There were no signs of spectators, no chairs lining the curb, no cigarette butts, no snack wrappers, just the kind of trash paraders leave behind, like they marched in silence, unwatched. And that overturned chair, it was one of ours. A folding sanitation chair, our label still visible on the back. I called my supervisor and asked who was on shift in this zone last night. He pulled the records. Nobody was. That street was left alone after 6 p.m. I didn't say anything, just kept sweeping. Then I saw something that made my stomach turn. Up on one of the balconies, there was a string of beads hanging from the railing. Not just any beads, the exact kind I'd tossed during a parade 2 years ago. Bright orange, custom tagged, with a typo we laughed about. Except those had been tossed on canal miles away. Now one of them was swinging gently in the morning breeze. No wind, just moving. I backed up, got into the truck, and was about to call it a wrap when I glanced at the passenger seat. There was a flyer sitting there. Same one. But this one had handwriting at the bottom in red ink. "See you tonight." I didn't go back to Rousseau Street after that. Didn't clock in the next day either. I don't care if I get written up. Some parades don't want an audience. They just want to be noticed once. And then they find their own way to invite you.